How often were you actually seeing illegal activities down there? Because I do feel like that's a little bit blown out of proportion.
Yeah. I was thinking about that. Other than speeding, which everybody does because the speed limit is ludicrously low, I didn't see much. I did see, and I debated whether to put this in the book or not. There was a driving through El Salvador. There was a guy with an Uzi standing right by the side of the road. That was probably the other time I was most scared because it's just a little spooky. It wasn't a cop. It wasn't a soldier. It was a well-dressed guy, no tattoos, wasn't like a gang member, but he looked really distressed and he was scanning the traffic as I drove by. And he had, an Uzi hanging. It's the first time I've ever seen like an Uzi out in the wild hanging from a strap. And I don't know who he was looking for. My best guess is that he was being extorted by the gangs because that's what they do. And he was coming up a driveway from this place that could be like a brake shop or something like that. So my best guess is he's a local business owner being extorted and is like, screw this, I'm fighting back. And I did see a truck with tinted out windows, a souped up truck pulled out over like a quarter mile down the road. I did not stick around to see how it went between the truck and the Uzi guy, but I debated putting that in the book because it's like you could say all these great things about El Salvador, but for some people the takeaway is just going to be the Uzi guy, But it happened, so I put it in there, and it's kind of the same way with talking about human sacrifice. So in the book, I go deeply into Mesoamerica, like I do a deep dive into Mesoamerican history, and human sacrifice is the big lurid thing that everybody wants to hear about, but it's also there's so much more to that history. And so I talked about it, but I didn't make it like the central thing that I talked about. Like the movie Apocalypto, Mel Gibson basically makes that like the whole central point of the movie is all this bloody, horrible sacrifice. And the Mayan really didn't do as much as like the Aztecs. They weren't as bad about it. But they did get worse by the end. Like they kind of got influenced by the other groups. Um, so yeah, it's this push pull of you don't want to gloss over the bad stuff, but you want to somehow make it so that isn't the one takeaway,
Yeah.
because that would suck.
How many things that you did see or hear about that you had to stop yourself from putting in the book because they might have just been a little bit too extreme?
Nothing that was too extreme. Um, there was things I had to cut because the book was already too long and going through. There's this. I met this guy on a beach, and he was kind of a little off kilter, but he was buying a boat to live on in Puerto Vallarta, and he said, if you want to spend the night on my boat, feel free when you're coming through. So I came through, and I was like, all right, if we get drunk and this guy gets weird, I got my backpack right by the thing. I'm going to run out of there. And then we get to the dock, and it's like, oh yeah, he did say something about being at anchor, which means you have to take the dinghy out to his boat. There's no dock. And it's like, well, that's going to be fun. If he gets crazy, I'm going to have to swim for it, basically. So I ended up putting my phone, which is pretty embarrassing to even talk about, in a plastic baggie, just in case I had to like grab my backpack and swim out of there. And the whole time it was like, all right, well, this could be a good story, so I should just do this. And I joke about it in the book, like, my grandkids, I can't deny my future grandkids, which I'm not going to have anyway, but I can't deny them the story of drunken Colin chasing me around his boat naked with a spear gun, And so that whole story ended up not going in just because it was kind of long and it took a lot to set all that up and for one joke, but that's the only thing I could think of. There was nothing that was too extreme to put in the book.
You've got quite a strange resume, we'll say. Poker player, stand-up comedy. You started your photography hobby with Death Valley of all places, and now traveling through all these places. What is it about the flirting with risk and uncertainty that you're so drawn to?
Um, I don't know, stupidity. Uh, I think that the not having kids thing, you look for other stuff to fill that void to kind of give your life some meaning, um, restlessness. I always just felt like I wanted to try to do something different, that was what the stand up comedy was all about, but I never really loved it. and I was okay at it, but I wasn't like, and